Hello everybody, David Lebowski here. Hope everyone is doing well. I haven't posted in a while and I thought I would do that today. So the post today is going to start off with some basics regarding mindfulness and specifically mindfulness-based stress reduction, or otherwise known as MBSR. And MBSR is a product of Jon Kabat-Zinn's work, a pioneer in mindfulness and specifically mindfulness-based stress reduction. So this work and this PowerPoint comes mostly from his book, and his book is called Catastrophe Living, and I did cite that at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, so you can check that out. And this chapter is entitled The Foundations of Mindfulness Practice. So I basically wanted to share the 7 attitudes and the commitment at the beginning of your mindfulness practice that you should be thinking about as you begin this journey into mindfulness. One of the things that is really important with mindfulness, or just about anything that you begin, is starting with a beginner's mind. It's good to be skeptical about mindfulness. It's good to be skeptical about anything you begin. But the studies have proven over time with mindfulness that if you come into it with some skepticism, but a willingness and an openness to give it a chance, those people are the most successful when it comes to mindfulness. So don't come into mindfulness thinking that, okay, I'm going to meditate and it's going to take away all my problems, my pain, health-wise. It's going to de-stress me, because you're going to be setting yourself up for failure. You're going to then be thinking that mindfulness doesn't work for you, and then you're going to stop the practice. So just like anything else, you have to give it time. And when we say practice, this is not practice meaning, how to swing a baseball bat, how to throw a football. It's not that kind of practice. It's a practice where you are settling in and tuning into your body and mind. So it certainly takes time, but please don't get frustrated and keep on doing it and keep on working through it. So I hope this video is a good foundation for you. This is a 16-slide presentation, and most of the slides will speak for themselves, and I'll just come in during the recording here for each slide a little bit and share some information regarding each slide. And hopefully this is helpful to everybody. Okay, thank you. So what are the 7 attitudes? They are non-judging, patience, a beginner's mind, like we said, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. So first, non-judging. Jon Kabat-Zinn talks about non-judging in this way. Mindfulness is cultivated by paying close attention to your moment-to-moment experience, while as best you can, not getting caught up in your ideas and opinions, likes and dislikes. This orientation allows us to see things more as they may actually be, rather than through our own distorted lenses and agendas. To adopt such a stance toward your own experience requires that you become aware of the constant stream of judging and reacting to the inner and outer experiences that we all normally get caught up in, and learn to step back from it all. When we begin practicing paying attention to the activity of our own mind, it is common to discover and to be surprised, even astonished, by the fact that we are constantly generating judgments about our experience. Almost everything we see is labeled and categorized by the mind. We react to everything we experience in terms of what we think its value is to us. Some things, people, and events are judged as good because they make us feel good. Others are equally quickly condemned as bad because they make us feel bad. The rest is categorized as neutral because we don't think it has much relevance. Neutral things, people, and events are almost completely tuned out of our consciousness. We usually find them the most boring to give attention to. If we are to find a more effective way of handling the stress in our lives, the first thing we will need to do is to be aware of these automatic judgments so that we can see through our own, usually unexperienced prejudice and fears and liberate ourselves from their tyranny. When practicing mindfulness, it is important to recognize this judging quality of mind when it appears and assume a broader perspective by intentionally suspending judgment and assuming a stance of impartiality, reminding yourself to, as best you can, simply observe what is unfolding, including your reactions to it. When you find the mind judging, you don't have to stop it from doing that, and it would be unwise to try. All that is required is to be aware of it happening. No need to judge the judging and make matters worse. As an example, let's say you are practicing watching your breathing, as we did earlier, and as we do a lot more in the next. At a certain point you may find your mind saying something like, this is boring, or this isn't working, or I can't do this. These are judgments. When they come up in your mind, it is very important to recognize them as judgmental thinking and remind yourself that the practice involves suspending judgment and just watching whatever comes up, including your own judging thoughts, without pursuing them or acting on them in any way. Then go back to riding the waves of your breathing with full awareness once again. So here's a brief exercise, a non-judging exercise. Take a moment, and you can stop this, of course, but take a moment. Have you ever had a time in your life when you felt as if you let down a friend? Have you had a bad interaction with someone at work, and you've allowed this bad interaction to take you home? You take it home with you. You think about it over and over again. Or perhaps you could think of another instance in your life when you allowed negative thoughts to consume you after certain situations, and you replayed these thoughts over and over again. So you can take some time to do that. So the next attitude that Jon Kabat-Zinn discusses in his book is patience. And we've all heard this word before. So what does it mean when it comes to mindfulness? What does patience and this attitude of patience mean? Well, patience is a form of wisdom. It demonstrates that we understand and accept the fact that sometimes things must unfold in their own time. A child may try to help a butterfly to emerge by breaking open its chrysalis, as you can see in this photo here. Usually the butterfly doesn't benefit from this. Any adult knows that the butterfly can only emerge in its own time, that the process cannot be hurried. In the same way, we cultivate patience toward our own minds and bodies when practicing mindfulness. We intentionally remind ourselves that there is no need to be impatient with ourselves because we find the mind judging all the time, or because we are tense or agitated or frightened, or because we have been practicing for some time and nothing positive seems to have happened. We give ourselves room to have these experiences. Why? Because we are having them anyway. When they come up, they are our own reality. They are part of our life unfolding in this moment. So we treat ourselves as well as we would treat the butterfly. Why rush through some moments to get to other better ones? After all, each one is your life in that moment. When you practice being with yourself in this way, you are bound to find that your mind has a mind of its own. Some of its thoughts are pleasant, others are painful and anxiety-producing. In either case, thinking itself exerts a strong pull on our awareness, eclipsing it. Much of the time our thoughts overwhelm our perception of the present moment. They may cause us to lose our connection to present entirely. Patience can be a particularly helpful quality to invoke when the mind is agitated. It can help us to accept this wandering tendency of the mind while reminding us that we don't have to get caught up in all its travails. Practicing patience reminds us that we don't have to fill up our moments with activity and with more thinking in order for them to be rich. In fact, it helps us to remember that quite the opposite is true. To be patient is simply to be completely open to each moment, accepting it in its fullness, knowing that, like the butterfly, things can only unfold in their own time. So this brings us to a patience exercise. Think about times in your life when your impatience may have caused something negative to happen, such as conflict with another person, quitting too soon, or a car accident. Take a moment and think about a recent situation in your life where practicing patience may have helped. And of course, we all could use a little more patience given our current situation. So this is an important quality, is the idea of patience. Beginner's mind. This is one of my favorite ones because, as I said in the beginning slide, this is what everyone should bring to the table when they start mindfulness. You have to have a beginner's mind. Don't come into it thinking, I know how this works, or this won't work for me. You have to come into it with a beginner's mind. And I love this little caption here, this artwork here. I wonder how this works. The one person is saying, and the other person is saying, I know how this works. So that's more of a closed-minded person versus an open-minded and a beginner's mind. So to cite Jon Kabat-Zinn, he goes on to say, the beginner's mind, the richness of present moment experience is the richness of life itself. Too often we let our thinking and our beliefs about what we know prevent us from seeing things as they really are. We tend to take the ordinary for granted and fail to grasp the extraordinariness of the ordinary. To see the richness of the present moment, we need to cultivate what has been called beginner's mind, a mind that is willing to see everything as if for the first time. This attitude will be particularly important when we engage in the formal meditation practices described in the following chapters. Whatever the particular practices we might be using, whether it is the body scan, the sitting meditation, or the yoga, we can resolve to bring our beginner's mind with us each time we practice, so that we can be free of our expectations based on our past experiences. An open beginner's mind allows us to be receptive to new possibilities and prevents us from getting stuck in the rut of our own expertise, which often thinks it knows more than it does. No moment is the same as any other. Each is unique and contains unique possibilities. Beginner's mind reminds us of the simple truth. The next time you see somebody who is familiar to you, ask yourself if you are seeing this person with fresh eyes, as he or she really is, or if you are only seeing the reflection of your own thoughts about this person and your feelings as well. Try it with your children, your spouse, friends, and coworkers, and even with your dog or cat if you have one. Try it with problems when they arise. Try it when you are outdoors in nature. Are you able to see the sky, the stars, the trees, the water, and the rocks as they are right now with a clear and uncluttered mind? Or are you actually seeing them only through the veil of your own thoughts, opinions, and emotions? So this brief beginner's mind exercise, just take a moment and think about a time when you were the person who entered a new learning experience or situation. You said, I know everything already, or I know how this works. If you found yourself saying that, then you certainly are looking at things with or through your own lens. You're saying to yourself, okay, I know what this is about, and I already know this, and then your mind's going to close up. So if you're a student, whether you're in high school, college, Or if you're someone who really appreciates learning, you're going to be looking and starting, maybe reading a book, watching a video, sitting in a classroom for the first time. It's important to have this beginner's mind. So take a moment and think about where you can apply this beginner's mind in your own life, and particularly with mindfulness. The next one is trust. I love this quote. A bird sitting in a tree is not afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not in the branch but in her own wings. So this is one of my favorites as well, because this is where we start to become more fully ourselves. You start to trust who you are and not constantly compare yourself to others or feel like you need to be like something else. So Jon Kabat-Zinn goes on to describe trust as an important attitude in this way. He says, developing a basic trust in yourself and your feelings is an integral part of meditation training. It is far better to trust in your intuition and your own authority, even if you make some mistakes along the way, than always to look outside yourself for guidance. If at any time something doesn't feel right to you, why not honor your feelings? Why should you discount them or write them off as invalid because some authority or some group of people thinks or says differently? This attitude of trusting yourself and your own basic wisdom and goodness is very important in all aspects of the meditation practice. It will be particularly useful in the yoga. When practicing yoga, you will have to honor your feelings when your body tells you to stop or to back off in a particular stretch. If you don't listen, you might injure yourself. Some people who become involved in meditation get so caught up in the reputation and authority of their teachers that they don't honor their own feelings and intuition. They believe that their teacher must be a much wiser and more advanced person, so they think they should venerate the teacher as a model of perfect wisdom and do exactly what he or she says without question. This attitude is completely contrary to the spirit of meditation, which emphasizes being your own person and understanding what it means to be yourself. Anybody who is imitating somebody else, no matter who it is heading in the wrong direction. So I'll give you a personal example here with yoga. For me, I've been doing yoga for 6 years, and I will tell you that I've walked into classrooms and the studios and practiced yoga. And in the beginning, I would always do everything that everyone else was doing because I didn't want to look like I was different in any way or lesser of a yoga practitioner. So it was oftentimes I would push through things and I would do things that ended up hurting myself. So I needed to, and I should have trusted myself and trusted my own intuition in those cases. And I've learned from that certain poses don't work for me. So if I'm doing a yoga practice and I know that certain yoga poses don't work for me or I can't do them, I skip them, I do something else, and it doesn't bother me anymore. But in the beginning it did. So that's the idea of trust, being confident in your own intuition and your own authority and becoming your best guide. So this is a trust exercise. Again, these are just some things for you to think about. Think about times when you may have said, I wish I was like that person, or I wish I had listened to my gut instinct. Ask a family member if they've ever found themselves saying these things. Someone who's a little bit older than you, perhaps, that's been through life and some life experiences. But there's many times I could say, I can provide stories regarding my gut instinct. I should have listened to my gut instinct. So trust in yourself. Non-striving. So this is the 5th attitude that Jon Kabat-Zinn discusses in his book, Full Catastrophe Living. And I love that Winnie the Pooh quote, "What day is it? It's today," squeaked Piglet. "My favorite day," said Pooh. I want to be very clear here. Non-striving does not mean you don't set goals for yourself. Non-striving does not mean just be lazy and don't do anything in life. It's actually the opposite. So I'll describe it a little bit here for you, but you can see some of the notes I provided. Jon Kabat-Zinn goes on to describe non-striving as this. He says, almost everything we do for a purpose, to get something or somewhere. But in meditation, this attitude can be a real obstacle. That is because meditation is different from all other human activities. Although it takes a lot of work and energy of a certain kind, ultimately meditation is a non-doing. It has no goal other than for you to be yourself. The irony is that you already are. This sounds paradoxical and a little crazy. Yet this paradox and craziness may be pointing you toward a new way of seeing yourself, one in which you are trying less and being more. This comes from intentionally cultivating the attitude of non-striving. For example, if you sit down to meditate and you think, I'm going to get relaxed, or get enlightened, or control my pain, or become a better person, then you have introduced an idea into your mind of where you should be, and along with it comes the notion that you are not okay right now. If only I were calmer, or more intelligent, or a harder worker, or more this, or more that. If only my heart was healthier, or my knee were better, then I would be okay. But right now, I am not okay. This attitude undermines the cultivation of mindfulness, which involves simply paying attention to whatever is happening. If you are tense, then just pay attention to the tension. If you are in pain, then be with the pain as best you can. If you are criticizing yourself, then observe the activity of the judging mind. Just watch. Remember, we are simply allowing anything and everything that we experience from moment to moment to be here, because it already is. The invitation is to simply embrace it and hold it in awareness. You do not have to do anything with it. So this is a brief non-striving exercise. I really liked this idea, and it might make sense if you maybe write it down, but consider the words product and process for a moment. Write them down on a piece of paper. That often helps me remember things when I write them down or draw them. When we are striving, our primary concern is product, whereas when non-striving is present in us, we are focused on the process. Think about times when you were assigned a project by a teacher and all you were concerned about was the grade and getting it completed as soon as possible. Or think about the 76ers team and their slogan, trust the process. So it takes time, and that's the whole idea here, that if you appreciate and trust the process and see yourself go through the process and enjoy that process, that's that non-striving. Acceptance. This is attitude number 6. Seeing things as they actually are in the present instead of what you think they should be. So Jon Kabat-Zinn goes on to say the following about acceptance. He says, acceptance means seeing things as they actually are in the present. If you have a headache, accept that you have a headache. If you are overweight, why not accept it as a description of your body at this time? Sooner or later we have to come to terms with things as they are and accept them. Whether it is a diagnosis of cancer or learning of someone's death, often acceptance is reached only after we have gone through very emotion-filled periods of denial and then anger. These stages are a natural progression in the process of coming to terms with what is. They are all part of the healing process. In fact, my working definition of healing is coming to terms with things as they are. However, putting aside for the moment the major calamities that usually take a great deal of time to heal from, in the course of our daily lives, we often waste a lot of energy denying and resisting what is already fact. When we do that, we are basically trying to force situations to be the way we would like them to be, which only makes for more tension. This actually prevents positive change from occurring. We may be so busy denying and forcing and struggling that we have little energy left for healing and growing. And what little we have may be dissipated by our lack of awareness and intentionality. If you are overweight and feel bad about your body, it's no good to wait until you are the weight you think you should be before you start liking your body and yourself. At a certain point, if you don't want to remain stuck in a frustrating vicious cycle, you might realize that it is all right to love yourself at the weight that you are now, because this is the only time you can love yourself. Remember, now is the only time you have for anything. You have to accept yourself as you are before you can really change. Your choosing to do so becomes an act of self-compassion and intelligence. When you start thinking this way, losing weight becomes less important. It also becomes a lot easier. By intentionally cultivating acceptance, you are creating the preconditions for healing. So if we keep our attention focused on the present, we can be sure of one thing, that whatever we are attending to in this moment will change, giving us the opportunity to practice accepting whatever it is that will emerge in the next moment. Clearly, there is wisdom in cultivating acceptance. So, a brief acceptance exercise. The second bullet, we grew up believing that judging and evaluating ourselves negatively is how we improve. Actually, the best transformation fuel is letting yourself feel what you need to feel so you can decide what you want to do about it. That is how we develop interpersonal intelligence. Acceptance is the ability to experience all of your negative feelings. And last but not least is the seventh attitude that Jon Kabat-Zinn discusses in his book, Full Catastrophe Living. Letting go. Releasing our attachment to experiences, whether good or bad. Being simply an observer. Letting things be without grasping and pushing away. And letting go is not new to us. We do it every time we fall asleep. So Jon Kabat-Zinn goes on to describe letting go as the following. They say that in India there is a particularly clever way of catching monkeys. As the story goes, hunters will cut a hole in a coconut that is just big enough for a monkey to put its hand through. Then they will drill 2 smaller holes in the other end, pass a wire through, and secure the coconut to the base of a tree. Then they slip a banana inside the coconut through the hole and hide. The monkey comes down, puts his hand in, and takes hold of the banana. The hole was cleverly crafted so that the open hand can go in, but the fist cannot get out. All the monkey has to do to be free is to let go of the banana, but it seems most monkeys don't let go. So often our minds get us caught in very much the same way, in spite of all our intelligence. For this reason, cultivating the attitude of letting go, or non-attachment, is fundamental to the practice of mindfulness. When we start paying attention to our inner experience, we rapidly discover that there are certain thoughts, feelings, and situations that the mind seems to want to hold on to. If they are present, we try to prolong these thoughts or feelings or of situations, stretch them out, and conjure them up again and again. There are many thoughts and feelings and experiences that we try to get rid of or prevent ourselves from having because they are unpleasant, painful, or frightening in one way or another, and we want to protect ourselves from them. In the meditation practice, we intentionally put aside the tendency to elevate some aspects of our experience and reject others. Instead, we just let our experience be what it is and practice observing it from moment to moment. Letting go is a way of letting things be, of accepting things as they are. When we observe our mind grasping and pushing away, we remind ourselves to let go of those impulses on purpose, just to see what will happen if we do. When we find ourselves judging our experience, we let go of those judging thoughts. We recognize them and we just don't pursue them any further. We let them be, and in doing so, we let them go. Similarly, when thoughts of the past or the future come up, we let go of them. We just watch, resting in awareness itself. So just a brief letting go exercise. And again, this is the monkey story here that I read. And I like Jon Kabat-Zinn's quote, "We humans become trapped in a similar way when we refuse to let go. We cannot move on to what may be a better situation or new way of thinking because we stubbornly hold on to the old." So we get stuck in this pattern. So that's the idea of letting go. The seventh and last attitude.